Well, it is almost Easter time. So, happy Easter, guys. What if Easter is a pagan holiday that was celebrated by Druids and the Romans and Gnostics and Satanists all the way back to the Garden of Eden? What if infiltrators of Christianity, a secret cult of vampire men, infiltrated Roman Catholicism and brought their pagan holiday Easter with them? What if there is an unfathomable history to a commonly used and commercialized word, and what if the word Easter has nothing to do with it? Hi, my name is Joseph Armstrong, and welcome to the Bible Version Conspiracy. So, let me just be clear. On this channel, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about the King James Bible. We talk about the modern Bible translation controversy. We talk about conspiracy theories. We talk about history. We talk about all sorts of things. So, tonight's going to bring in a lot of those different elements, and I guarantee you it's not going to be boring. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to lob them at me in the live chat. Those will be available on YouTube, and I believe I'll also be able to see Facebook comments because we're streaming to my personal profile, and we're also streaming to our Facebook page, BibleVersionConspiracy.com, and you can hit us up on YouTube at Bible Version Conspiracy. So, wow, there's just so many things. It is hard to know where exactly to start. What I would like to start with is I would like to let you guys know that on April 19th, we're going to have a stream that we recorded not too long ago, last Sunday, at, well, it was supposed to be at 4:30 in the morning, but it ended up being 5 because of a communication issue. But 4:30, 5, whatever it was, we streamed super early last Sunday. And we talked with Bryan R, the author of the book, Don't Pass Over Easter. He's got a different approach to King James-onlyism. I think that he would consider himself a King James-only pastor, a King James-only user, King James-only Christian. But he doesn't look at it a lot of things. He doesn't look at a lot of things from the standard King James only perspective, and that I appreciate immensely. And it gets very valuable, especially when you get into the weeds on some of these issues, like the word Easter. So, we're going to try to talk about some of that stuff tonight. This is our website, BibleVersionConspiracy.com. Once it loads, I think you guys have it now. All right, this is our Easter page. Easter, is it pagan or is it Passover? Well, it turns out that there's really good evidence that Easter, especially in the King James Bible, and we get into this more with Bryan R, that Easter in Acts 12:4 is only called Easter, and it's the only reference to Easter in the King James Bible, simply because the King James translators made a distinction between when Passover happened before and when it happened after Jesus Christ. I do not know if this use of the word Easter came forward in their writings, but from all appearances, and Bryan R talks about it more in the book, and I'm sorry, Bryan, if in case you're watching this, I haven't had a chance to look at what you wrote in further detail, the pages that you mentioned about why you think it's rendered Easter only in this passage. But from what I have seen so far, what the KJV Today article states, and which is a very popular King James Bible defending website, they seek to defend the inerrancy of the King James Bible. They say that it is demonstrably inerrant. And I think that the word Easter is not a mistranslation, it's a misunderstanding. I think the same thing about Lucifer in Isaiah 14:12. It is a misunderstanding, it is not a mistranslation. And that's the rub That's the important point that we need to make so many times when it comes to this stuff. So, it seems to me, like I mentioned already, that Easter is translated Easter only in this passage because it is the only reference to the Passover after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I forgot to bring this up in the interview with Bryan Ross. I was going to, but due to time constraints, we didn't get that far. But I did want to mention that more clearly this time, and I'm looking forward to what Bryan has to state further on that issue in the rest of his book. It's a real short read, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So, and of course, Passover is mentioned after Acts 12, but when it's talked about Passover as it was in the Old Testament sense. So it's referring back to a date. The only time that Passover is actually mentioned by name in the New Testament, in the King James Bible, is in Acts 12:4. I don't think there's any other translations that make that exact distinction. There are some, from what I understand, there are some earlier translations before the King James Bible that use Passover for Old Testament usage and Easter for New Testament usage. As I also understand, and from what Bryan mentions, Tyndale, it was the guy who actually invented the word Passover. And before Tyndale, Easter or Pascha were the standard English uses, the standard English words referring to the Jewish festival on which Christ would have been crucified. So, I wanted to bring that up, and hopefully that triggers some critical thinking. And we hope that this page helps to trigger some nostalgia as well. So we have our little playlist about Easter. You guys can check that out. Like I said, this is BibleVersionConspiracy.com/Easter. And we get into all of the articles that different people have written about Easter on here. That's translation in Acts 12:4. We've got an article by the Trinitarian Bible Society. We've got by KJV Today. We've got by Will Kinney, which is actually very good, even though I think that his article on Lucifer was not very good at all. But the thing is that modern translations, when they render it Passover, it is correct. When the King James Bible renders it Easter, it is correct. Will Kinney does not pretend in this article that you can only render it Easter, you cannot render it Passover. He doesn't pretend that in this article. That's what makes the article good, because it shows the truth that both translations in Acts 12:4, which reads, and when they had apprehended him, he put him in prison. That's talking about Herod putting Peter, I think, in prison. When he saw, and when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. And he was going to do that after Passover. Herod celebrated Passover, which King James only people will not tell you that, especially the ones that espouse this idea that Easter was a pagan holiday celebrated by Herod. Why would he care about the Jewish feast? Well, sorry, Josephus apparently, as James White has pointed out, Herod celebrated Passover, according to Josephus. Isn't that fascinating? Fascinating. Isn't it odd that information gets left out that contradicts the KJV-only paradigm very often? But anyways, Will Kinney does not pretend that Easter is the only accurate translation. Sam Gipp, Gail Riplinger, I believe also Jack Mormon, Peter Ruckman, I believe also did. They believe that that is the only possible translation. There's another obscure website too. It's like KJV translation technology, or I forget what the website was. They pretend something similar. I believe. No, actually, no. Scratch that. I think that was the article about Lucifer I'm talking about. But anyways. Will Kinney, when he writes his article about Lucifer, however, he does not pretend that Lucifer can also be translated Daystar, even though the modern translations are correct when they say Daystar and Morning Star and Shining One and Bright Morning Star. And the King James Bible is correct when it renders it Lucifer. Will Kinney wants to pretend when it comes to Lucifer that Lucifer is the only possible translation because Will Kinney has one understanding of Lucifer and one understanding only, that is the modern popular understanding, that it refers to Satan only. And that is his big downfall with that article. Will, I appreciate a lot of your work. I agree with you on a lot of things. But I'm sorry, your article on Lucifer, and I told you, and it made you mad, I used the word, it was a joke. Your article was a joke. And a badly told joke at that. The one on Passover and a lot of your other articles are amazing when they support the truth. When you fall short of the truth and you try to pretend that things are your way and not the way of truth, I'm sorry, you can list as many people as you want to as commentators that say that, Lucifer is in the passage. But the thing is that he's only implied in the passage. And that is clear. But most commentators, Matthew Henry, not Matthew Henry, sorry. Matthew Henry is a little more responsible than that. Harry Ironsides, John Henry Morris of the Morris Study Bible, the Defender's Bible, I think is also called. All those guys, they apparently weren't aware of the history surrounding that passage, and Will tries to pretend that the history isn't there while he's quoting it constantly, and it's we'll talk about the Lucifer thing another time. It's a dead horse that I've already beaten to a pulp. All right, so Thomas Holland, Sam Gipp from the Answer book. Isn't Easter a mistranslation of Pascha, and should it be translated as Passover? That's a fascinating one too. That's the one that sort of kind of started it all, and I'm not sure if Jack Mormon's came before his or not. Scott Jones has one too. I'm not 100% sure who he is. But anyways, we get into the stuff about the Pascha papers a little bit more. Easter and historical Bibles. Brian Ross's video is here. We're on our way down to the pagan-y part of the page. So that's where we're headed. Here's James White's pages where he mentions Easter. You can read both of those. They're available. We'll be expanding this page also in the future. And here's where we were headed. Is Easter pagan? Well, I watched a couple of YouTube videos and they said that it was. Well, I watched a couple of YouTube videos earlier that said that it wasn't. So what are the facts? Because remember, anybody can publish on YouTube. YouTube is the perfect place to spread whatever the heck you want. It's basically self-publishing on steroids. It's self-publishing with super strength, super speed. It's basically Superman version of self-publishing. And anybody can put any old piece of trash that they want to on YouTube and get away with it, which is a pain in the rear, because then that leaves other YouTube people like me that go around trying to fix what we can. So anyways, Easter is not pagan, is what Inspiring Philosophy says. Michael Jones, he does pretty good with his information. There are a lot of things that I disagree with him on, like pre-Adamites, and I'm not sure if he would be necessarily day age. I'm pretty sure he would be more so. Well, actually, yeah. If I remember correctly, he is day age. He's what is it? Theistic evolutionist, I believe, as well. So he goes for the whole science thing and stuff like this. And also tries to pretend that if science changed its mind on evolution, that it wouldn't change his interpretation of Scripture, which I don't think is true. I think he might be being a little bit disingenuous there, but that's just my opinion. Hey, Michael Jones, if you see this video, I highly doubt you will. So I watched the first couple parts of this on the way home, and I definitely watched this one, Is Easter Pagan? He didn't mention a couple of things that I thought that he would. He did mention the thing about the Easter egg, which we'll get to in a moment. But we'll cover that a little bit more thoroughly in a second. So he actually states that the Easter egg probably is in the Easter celebration and is in a lot of celebrations simply because it's a commonly eaten food, and that would make sense. But Ken Johnson, a little bit later on, actually talks about it a little bit more, and it sounds like it may have been part of the Jewish fast Jewish festival of Passover, which would make sense because since Easter is basically Passover is the Jewish Easter, basically, then you have that through line that ties Easter and Passover together, if that's how that egg came through, just like that. We'll get into that in a second. Let me show you where that is. I'm pretty sure I have it up. Yeah, it's after all the Hislop nonsense. Ancient Origins of Modern Holidays by Ken Johnson. You can click here, click the image, and you can go buy the book, which is very short. It's a small book, but it is dense. It is full of information that I think you guys will find valuable at any season of the year. If you guys are liking this video, hit that like button, please. And if you like this kind of content, what we're covering, and I think I have a mission for our channel. I was thinking about it earlier. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you're getting some value out of our content, please share this to your timeline, share this where you would, and help the channel grow, because sharing the show is the only way you can make it grow. So, the pan-Babylonian idea, which is usually put forward by your anti-holiday crowd, your Jehovah's Witnesses, your Seventh-day Adventists, your Alexander Hislop, your Gail Riplinger, your David Daniels, your Peter Ruckman, all these people, they would say that everything would go back to Babylon, to pan-Babylonianism, to Nimrod, his wife, and his son Tammuz, because they swallow Hislop's To Babylon, To Babylon's hook, line, and sinker. This is Hislop's To Babylons by Alexander Hislop. And this is the audiobook version, and I believe there's also several editions of the book that you can purchase on Amazon if you feel like it. The noisy slurp. We're getting that noisy slurp down. So, there's multiple versions of it there. You can check it out on Internet Archive. You can check it out on Google Books. There's all sorts of places you can look it up. The link got obliterated, I think, when I was trying to edit it at one point. There's at least a link to the Internet Archive version of it, which is fully searchable, so that will be advantageous to y'all. Hislop is also critical of the word Easter's appearance in Acts 12:4, which is fascinating, stating simply that everyone knows it refers to Passover. And yes, it did, because Easter is the English word for Passover. It was before William Tyndale. It continued to be after William Tyndale. And it somewhat continues to today. But the thing is that Easter today is a false friend. What do you even know about that? Oh yeah, Mark Ward talked about false friends all the time. That's right. A word that you look at that you know what it means, but it means something that you don't know. It's a King James word that you don't know that you don't know. And boy, there are a lot of them. He covered 150 on his YouTube channel. The RSV preface says there's about 300, which is what Dan Wallace said on the Ankerberg show. So, here's what Alexander Hislop said about Passover and Easter. The festival of which we read in church history under the name Easter in the 3rd or 4th centuries is quite a different festival from that now observed in the Romish Church, and at that time we know was not known by any such name as Easter. It was called Pasch, or the Passover. William Tyndale, thank you. And though not of apostolic institution, was very early observed by many professing Christians in commemoration of the death and resurrection of Christ. So we're going to follow up on that little asterisk right there. Come on. Highlight. That was not what I was trying to highlight there. But we're going to continue here with the footnote on Alexander Hislop. Socrates, an ancient ecclesiastical historian, after a lengthened account of the different ways in which Easter was observed in different countries of his time, i.e., the 5th century, sums up in these words: Thus much already laid down, many seem to. I'm so sorry. This is so weirdly worded. Thus much already laid down, many seem a sufficient treatise to prove that the celebration of the feast of Easter began everywhere more of custom than by any commandment either of Christ or any apostle, and that's history Ecclesiast. It's probably an abbreviation for ecclesiastical or something. So here is what Alexander Hislop has to say about its inclusion in Acts 12:4, which is amazing because I've never heard a King James only person correct good old Alexander Hislop. I did hear, however, Sam Gipp in his what's the big deal about the King James Bible? Episode 7, part 7, whatever they call it. I did hear him say that everything in Hislop's book was correct. I wonder how much of it he had actually researched. I wonder how much of it he had actually followed up on or fact-checked. But he certainly may not have noticed. He definitely for certain probably knew about the footnote. Everyone knows that the name Easter used in our translation of Acts 12:4 refers not to any Christian festival, but to the Jewish Passover. And obviously, yes, in the passage, Herod was not waiting for the Christians to get done celebrating Easter, and because it was good for the economy, all the sales of food coloring and eggs and baskets and plastic grass that shows up everywhere. I'm sure they have it in archaeological digs. That stuff, if they had it back then, it would be all over in archaeology. People would be pulling it out of like old pots. What is this? So, but yeah, he wasn't waiting for that because it was a boom for the economy because all the Christians were going spend crazy. It's because the Jews were celebrating the Passover, but the King James translators saw that as an opportunity to use the traditional English word for the Christian celebration of Passover that was connected to the resurrection of Christ. Interesting. Fascinating. Intriguing. This is one of the few places in our version where the translators show an undue bias. He doesn't say that it was a pagan festival that was being celebrated there. He says that they were exhibiting an undue bias, which I think he misunderstood it. Personally, I think he misunderstood their intention behind that translation. All right, so that is basically your pan-Babylonianism. We've got a little link right there to what's the big deal about the KJV part 7. There's links below to the where you guys can submit what you guys think about the page and your opinions. And there's a link to the historical treatise of the travels of Noah in Europe by Giovanni Nani. Fascinating book. I need to find a digital copy of it and have Speechify read it to me. It'd be so good. So just to let you guys know, this isn't necessarily sponsored by Speechify, this episode, but Speechify is an awesome app you guys can download for Android or iPhone, and you can have Speechify read you anything. It'll read books to you in PDF format. That's one of the ways that I'm planning to actually digest this here eventually once I have a quiet second. With Speechify, you can take a picture of a book and convert it into an audiobook. You can take a web link. You can just, paste in a web link and it'll take the web page and it'll turn it into an audiobook for you. It'll You can copy, like if somebody sends you a really long email or a really long message, or somebody on Facebook you're in a fight with, a Facebook duel to the death that everyone will remember you for, of course. I mean, they do, right? I'm getting sidetracked. All right. So really long Facebook comments, you're in an argument, you don't want to have to read the whole thing, you're trying to get where you got to go, picking up Easter eggs or plastic grass at the grocery store. You can't buy grass at the grocery store. That's not good. But you want to get there, do your thing, but you want to read this comment too at the same time, and you're fuming, you're white knuckling the steering wheel. Well, you can have Speechify read it to you. You just copy the text, paste it in there, and boom, audiobook. So there is a link down in the description where you guys can follow up on that and save a little bit of money on a premium subscription. I would highly recommend premium. It's a lot more powerful and it helps a ton. That's one way that I'm able to digest the amount of information that I do on a weekly basis, is thanks to the app Speechify. Like I said, links in the description. I should really just put a links in the description sometime, with like dashes and slashes and plus signs and stuff, and actually make a Bobcat links and put it in the description. I think that would be hilarious. Or a meme, Joseph be like, links in the description, and then the links. I think that'd be pretty funny. Oh well. All right, so Easter. This is what Ken Johnson has to say about it. From what I have experienced of Alexander Hislop, he's got a lot of stuff going for him, but the problem is he doesn't quite get the significance of what he's talking about. He wants everything to relate to this theory of pan-Babylonianism. He wants everything to relate to Nimrod, everything to relate to Semiramis and Tammuz and all this stuff. And the problem is that it doesn't. So it's kind of a pain. Ancient Origins of Modern Holidays. I think that Ken Johnson does a much better job with his research. And as I've said before, he is a Dead Sea Scroll scholar. And yeah, he is coming highly recommended to you. We read the first book that we read from him was Ancient Post-Flood History. My wife and I read that while we were driving, and we were blown away. You can find that in our library on the website here, BibleVersionConspiracy.com/library, and we got a whole bunch of books in there for you if you want to check them out. So yeah, highly recommend this author. Easter Sunday is a Christian celebration of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Christians believe that Jesus was the prophesied Messiah and that he fulfilled the prophecy of dying for our sins and resurrecting 3 days afterward. It is also called Resurrection Sunday. From the time of the Egyptian Exodus, Jews have celebrated this time period with a ritual called Passover. Christians believe that the ritual of the Passover Seder depicted the death, burial, and resurrection of the Messiah at his first coming. The dates of Passover, and therefore Easter, are different every year because the calculation is based on the lunar calendar instead of the solar Gregorian calendar used by most nations today. Easter falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox, March 20th, which is a vernal equinox. So one thing I'll say about that too is that from Ken Johnson's work on the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff like this, he has discussed on several occasions the idea that the Jewish calendar originally was a solar calendar, and that the Essenes, the community of the Dead Sea Scrolls, they actually counted the rabbis and everybody that rejected Christ. They counted them to be heretics, not awaiting the Messiah, and compromising with the Romans to go with a lunar calendar. I believe it was the Romans. So fascinating stuff he's dug up on that kind of stuff. The name Easter. Some people have noticed that the word Easter sounds like it might come from the pagan Babylonian goddess Istar, or the Germanic goddess I had this earlier. Ostara. I think it's how it's pronounced, Ostara. The words sound virtually the same, but just because they sound alike does not mean they are related words. There is no connection with Easter and Istar, but the word Easter seems to be connected with Ostara. Eoster. I'm so sorry. I'm pretty sure it's Ostara, but I digress. He does cite the Venerable Bede as a reliable source, where Wes Huff and Michael Jones would say that the Venerable Bede may have made it up. He may be confused with something else. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would say that he may know what he was talking about. So, just because scholars don't know about this, that, or the other thing, it doesn't mean that they're not going to discover it in the future, and maybe we can hold out hope that they might. Maybe if they start taking some of Bill Cooper's work a little bit more seriously, and I don't mean the Behold the Pale Horse Bill Cooper, I mean the Bill Cooper that wrote After the Flood. That's a pretty good book. In my opinion, I haven't looked into his claims, so please don't hang me on his research. But it does seem pretty legit when he presents the history, the ancient history of Europe. It's a fascinating book as well. I would recommend that you have Ken Johnson's book on ancient post-flood history and Bill Cooper's book After the Flood. There is a quote from medieval English church father Bede, who wrote in the early 8th century AD in his Reckoning of Time. Bede explains what the old pagan names for the month were and what they are called now in Christian times. The month of April was called simply Paschal month, and it also had before that basically Eoster month, so Easter month. That was the old, if I understand correctly, the old Germanic name for the month April by the English Christians at the time. The old pagan name for the month of April was Ostara, which was the shortened form of Ostara month, basically. Right here at the beginning of the quote. Ostara month. See how close that is even to our English? Maybe it's because it's transliterated, like, Easter month. It's fascinating. As a name which is now translated Paschal month, and which was once called after the goddess of theirs named Ostara, in whose name feasts were celebrated in that month. Now they designate the Paschal season by her name, calling the joys of the new rite by the time-honored name of the old observance. So what I would also say in this vein is, I believe it was the KJV Today article. He does talk about this connection, if I'm not mistaken, that the name of that goddess would have come because of the new beginning, the dawn of the new year in April and spring and all this stuff. So the goddess, basically, a goddess named Joy, or whatever else. It's basically a name that's attributed to an individual, and that is basically a trait of this thing. I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear, but I think that you know what I mean. So basically, she would be called this because it is a characteristic of the time that she is being worshipped or what have you. And as you will find out in the travels of Noah in Europe, by Giovanni Nani, or whatever his name was. You'll find out in there, and also the ancient post-flood history, that a lot of these gods and goddesses were real people, and that they were worshipped because they were being remembered. It was ancestor worship. They didn't just make up these things off the top of, Homer's Odyssey or whatever. So that's the reckoning of times 15. What do we know? Or what do we know is that what we do know is that the word ostara in the Germanic and Saxon languages actually means rising, like the sun rising in the east at dawn. The month of April was called the month of the rising because spring came and plants began to bud. Eventually, a derivative of the word became east, and that came to mean the direction that the sun would rise in the morning. So that's also going to connect right on into your Lucifer word, because the light bringer was the star from the east. Isn't that fascinating? And the word Lucifer, being light bearer, simply means the dawn bringer. And that is applying to the planet Venus and not Satan. He is being referred to allegorically when people read Satan into the passage. But I personally think, well, I'll get right off of this. I personally think the best defense against Luciferianism, against the cults that try to manipulate the word Lucifer, all that nonsense, the best defense against it is the plain and obvious fact that the scripture has no reference to Satan whatsoever in Isaiah 14. Not even a smidge. That interpretation was invented by Christians very early on. The earliest reference I know of was Justin Martyr, and they, moving forward, were extremely clear that what was being referred to in the passage was the king of Babylon. And he was being referred to as the planet Venus falling out of the sky. Wow, how did you get taken out? You amazing shining star, now you're in the mud. Basically is what they were saying. That's what all the old people said with the Matthew's Bible and blah, blah, blah. We've been over this before. So yeah, basically, that's how all that worked out, and gradually that interpretation got edged out of the commentaries, and now we only have one use for the word Lucifer in modern English, and that is Satan. And modern translations knew the truth, and King James onlyists hate it because it shows that their ideas were wrong, and kind of also the modern translation defenders' views were wrong, but both of their Bibles were right. And that's another thing that they don't like about Easter. Easter and Lucifer both show that modern translation advocates can be wrong. King James only advocates can be wrong. But if you understand both of the Bibles that they're talking about correctly, you'll easily see that both of their Bibles are right, even though the readers are wrong. It's a fascinating, fascinating subject we have going on. Let's see. Easter. All right. Easter, either the Old English month of April was named after a spring goddess, or more likely it was named after the season of spring, and later pagans turned the spring season into a goddess they worshipped. If so, the word Easter has no direct connection to paganism. And also, it simply doesn't. It has completely different roots. And Istar is not in the details. If she is, and you found evidence, please send it to us. I would love to add it to our page. If you don't have any evidence, keep beating your brains out in the Facebook battles that you're involved in, and keep claiming everything that you want. But if you can't back it up, don't send us stuff. Okay? I would appreciate having something documented and as tangible as possible to put on the page. Or else, if we discuss it, it will have to be clearly labeled, this is somebody's idea. And like I try to talk about, when something is just my own personal idea, I let you know. I always try to let you guys know where I get things from. The Easter egg. Too bad Gail Riplinger wasn't that careful about things, but anyways, I digress. The Easter egg. On Passover, the Jews perform a ritual meal called the Seder. And that has nothing to do with the satyr of Greek mythology. Even though Gail Riplinger would love for those two words to be related, they're not. And it kind of reminds me of the way that so many people try to pull off these word games. It reminds me very much of the transformation of America with Kathy O'Brien, where her programmers used word games. Crazy stuff. Dimensions and birds are the two that I remember right now. Maybe someday we'll discuss that book in more detail, but suffice it to say, don't read it unless you're braced. If you can't make it past the first paragraph that Kathy O'Brien writes after her co-author writes, if you can't make it past that first paragraph, don't read anymore. You won't make it past the rest of the book. It is horribly disturbing, a lot of it. Anyways, she's probably one of the most credible victims of the underground programming process of slavery that is happening in America today. But it's not an easy read, so brace yourself. The Easter egg. On Passover, the Jews perform a ritual meal called the Seder. The Easter egg comes from this Passover Seder ritual. There is a special dish used for the ritual called the Seder plate. It holds several items. One is an egg. In America, it is usually a hard-boiled egg, but in the ritual, it is supposed to be fire-roasted. So you've got your bitter herbs, you've got your shank bone, haroset, lettuce, parsley, and an egg. If this is a clock, it'd be on the number 9. The Passover Seder egg is an egg roasted brown by fire, symbolizing the temple sacrifices. It is said to represent a new beginning or new life that happens because of the temple sacrifices. Isn't that interesting? Because people told you that the only reason Easter eggs were invented was because they're a fertility symbol. Well, what if they symbolize a new beginning? And what about this? As Christians, we hold that the temple sacrifices were rituals that pointed to the one sacrifice of the Messiah. If we accept Jesus Christ as our Savior, we are given a new birth. The Easter egg, as we know it, came into being when the Eastern Orthodox Church started coloring their hard-boiled eggs red, stating it represented the new life in Jesus Christ. And obviously, because of his bloodshed, sorry, I have a paragraph break there that I should not have. Because of his bloodshed as the sacrifice for our sins, cracking the shell and taking the egg out symbolizes the same thing as the Passover Seder ritual of retrieving the hidden matzah that was wrapped in a white cloth, the resurrection of the Messiah. Isn't that fascinating? That is a beautiful picture of the raising of the Messiah from the dead. Did they have the authority to change the ritual? Maybe, maybe not. But the practice did not come from paganism. In the last 100 years or so, Easter eggs have become secular and painted with multiple colors. All of them, I'm sure, are endocrine disruptors and carcinogens with every possible artistic design imaginable. The Easter Bunny. Now, this one fascinated me because it comes on down into the, oh, it's 666. Scroll back. I like this one. So they also tell you, I'm sure that they worshipped Easter bunnies. Yep. And yeah, there's also a rabbit on the moon in what is it, Chinese myth or what have you, and he's trying to find an elixir for eternal life. Isn't that interesting? I wonder how much that plays into the idea of the Dark Fleet. I don't think. I may have alluded to it before. I may have alluded to the Dark Fleet on this YouTube channel before. If I haven't, maybe it's tied in with that whole thing about the rabbit on the moon. Maybe. But I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about the Dark Fleet in the after show chat if we are able to get to that. If you guys are interested in an after show chat, please message me. And by the way, in the Buy Me a Coffee membership thing, if you guys are members that are paying monthly, or if you are an honorary co-conspirator, you guys have access to us through the Buy Me a Coffee app and the Buy Me a Coffee website. You should be getting emails from us regularly at this point, and you should be seeing our content on them. And you can also reach back to me and talk to me directly through the Buy Me a Coffee platform. So if you are unable to do that, please reach out to me and I will help you set that up so we can be more directly connected. We can also directly connect with each other on Messenger. I'm usually pretty available there. The Easter Bunny. Since all nations, so if you want the after show chat, and if you actually want to talk about the Dark Fleet, oh boy, that's one for the ages. And if John Literal is watching right now, I've talked to him about the Dark Fleet, and forget about Project Blu-ray. Let me just tell you that right now. Or Project, is it Project? Whatever, Blu-ray, Bluebeam, Project Bluebeam, I think it was called. That's Blu-ray was a disc player. I'm sorry, we never owned a Blu-ray. All right, the Easter Bunny. Since all nations had to closely observe the spring equinox for planting and hunting, along with looking for the spring equinox, in some areas the people would look for animals to start having young. Rabbits and hares reproduce quickly, so a baby rabbit is a sure sign of spring. Spring has come. Bird eggs are another sign. Later, when the pagans started worshiping the spring season as a goddess, it might have been adapted into some pagan systems. There is no known manuscript, glyph, or stone carving that connects Istar with rabbits. The goddess Ashtoreth is connected with lions and owls, but not rabbits. There are no known reports of any kind about the rites of Ostara. Ostara? I think that's how I was pronouncing it, wasn't it? I don't know. Rabbits were a popular motif in medieval church art. In ancient times, it was widely believed, as by Pliny, Plutarch, here we go, Philostratus, and Elaine, that female rabbits could reproduce without the aid of a male rabbit. Of course, this is not true, but the idea of reproducing without the loss of virginity led to rabbits being associated with the Virgin Mary. I need a space in there. I just made a new word, Virgin Mary. Rabbits are often found in Northern European manuscripts and paintings of the Virgin and Christ child. Rabbits, and I'm sure also from what I have seen recently, hares as well. Not that Mary didn't ever shave her armpits, but there were hares in, if I remember correctly, the paintings. The triple rabbit, or those actually look more like a hare than a rabbit to me, the triple rabbit became a Catholic symbol for the Trinity and is found on many cathedrals in Europe. So that's that triple rabbit right there. And let's think about that in relation to the triquetra. Yeah, that makes sense. It's amazing to me how somebody who is supposed to have been so informed, so lucid, so scholarly, like Peter S. Ruckman, this to all my Ruckmanite guys, it's amazing to me how somebody like him could have taken the work of somebody like Gail Riplinger seriously for one moment. If it doesn't make sense, maybe there's a buck in it, or maybe there's something else. I don't know. But I have my personal suspicions, which we can talk about at some point. But, yeah. I wonder if good old Dr. Ruckman had some pressure to endorse Gail's work. Because apparently he never... And I would love to know if anybody has information contrary to this. As far as I am aware, Peter S. Ruckman never took issue with one thing Gail Riplinger ever claimed. Not one single solitary criticism whatsoever. Oh, well, maybe once in a while she had a, this or that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, she got this wrong here, and she should fix it. He never did that once, and I want to know why. By the 17th century, the Easter bunny and Easter eggs began to blend in Germany. These traditions came to America with the German immigrants in the mid-19th century. Shortly thereafter, children's stories of a rabbit that lays eggs came to be. And I will say also, inspiring philosophy had some good things to say that were insightful into the idea of the Easter bunny and the egg. The egg, I would think it was like 1280 or something like that. There was a King Edward or Edmund, I forget what the name was exactly. You guys can watch the video. It is called Easter is Not Pagan, is what it's called. So that's, go right ahead and watch that. There's your hair in the background. So if your hair has run away, there's your hair right there. Let's see. It's a white hair, but a hair nonetheless. All right. So basically, your eggs. There were Easter eggs apparently in at least 1280 that a king was preparing. They were being painted with golden leaves, I believe, or something like this, and he was going to give them to his family at Easter time. And the rabbit, there are a couple of citations about that were interesting. And one of them that stands out was where somebody was talking about catching a rabbit, but if they weren't able to, they would cook his nest of eggs. So I think that's probably one of the earlier references to your Easter bunny, and maybe a mythos of rabbits laying eggies. That'd be interesting. Which takes me to my childhood. There was this book that I found absolutely horrifying. It was called The Egg Book, and it was of this cute little rabbit, cute little bunny that was trying to hatch an egg. And if I remember correctly, the egg had like a duck in it or something. I forget. But I hated it when I was little, especially when I wasn't scared, I don't think, but it just like skeeved me out, I guess. When the rabbit yawned, I was just like, I don't like that, the teeth and it wasn't bad, but like as a little kid, it got to me. So, but then there was another book that I liked called Chickens Aren't the Only Ones. And I recently got that for my kids. It's a very well illustrated book. So if you have kids, check that one out. It's called Chickens aren't the only ones, like I just said. But anyways, lavishly illustrated. I loved looking at it, and we lost it as kids. And I was like, Mom, where did the egg book go? I liked looking at that egg book. Where's the egg book? I can't find it. And so she was like, oh, I know. And she went off and she'd bring back the book with the rabbit on it, because it was literally called the egg book. And so I'm just like, no, that's not it. This is the scarier one that I don't like. So, but anyways, I eventually found, I could never remember the title. I could remember the illustrations a little bit. It goes through all the different animals that lay eggs. And yeah, I was able to find it in an odd place I didn't expect to on Google Images, and I was just like, oh, there it is. It was in like books from the 90s, kids books from the 90s or something, I forget, but yeah, it was good to find that book and get it for my kids. Now they can enjoy it. Another one that I liked, It Could Be Worse. I liked that one too. I forget the author's name, but where the grandpa's being carried through the sky by a giant eagle. That was a fun book that I liked as a kid as well. And the kids enjoy it too. All right, anyways, enough about that. By the 17th century, the Easter Bunny, we already read that. All right. Ancient Origins of Modern Holidays by Ken Johnson, page 7274. For the record, the idea that the English word Easter comes from a pagan European goddess is discussed in Istar or Passover in Acts 12:4 by KJV today. So I thought I would bring that up. Oh boy. And then there's the Riplinger scoop about it being a pagan festival. Now, you guys can check out the document by Gail about the words and their meanings and stuff in her book called The Dictionary Inside the King James Bible. You can purchase that at that link right there. It goes from page 79 to 82. And, of course, you can read them all right here. We've provided them. She goes to great lengths, and you can access the PDF also for free on her website. If you just want to check out this one part, there is a PDF download where you can check out Easter and then a few other E words after that she goes through, and shows how the King James Bible has a miraculously planned built-in dictionary. I think some of it's legit. I think most of it isn't. Anyways, when you look at Easter in Acts 12:4, of course, it's a pagan holiday, she maintains. And at the same time, she has to see the Christian origins of it. So she's like, oh, the Star of the East was Christ, but then it was paganized and stuff like this. And it's like, oh, that's right. And you go and you read this article that she writes about it. And then maybe say go read the article not the article, go read the stuff that she writes about Lucifer, but she doesn't talk about Lucifer in this book because everybody knows what Lucifer is. So it doesn't need to be in the built-in dictionary. But is it? That'd be interesting to find out. All right, anyways. So you read this and you compare it to her research on Lucifer and her research on the Triquetra, and you'll find out that she has a really bad double standard going on. And like James White said, a double standard or inconsistency is indicative of a failed argument. And that's what Gail has in this respect, a failed argument. So we go down and we mention a few things that we find were wrong with it. This is kind of just me speaking out loud. This is a little more recent development that I have to go through and hone. Let's see. And also, the oldest is best, I decided. Gail talks about how the oldest editions of the Oxford English Dictionary are the best, even though they are the least complete, which is kind of funny. She boasts about having a 20-volume set that is very old, and everybody's combing the internet looking for this 20-volume set, and I have one. And stuff like this, and she doesn't quite understand how online subscriptions work and why people are looking for printed copies of them today because they're less expensive. But anyways, Sabbath or Saturday, we get into that too on this page. If you guys want to look at more on that, I highly recommend the Epistle of Barnabas, which Gail Riplinger claims is pagan out of her mind. She just, it's just ridiculous. the ancient epistle of Barnabas is actually very likely to have been written by the Barnabas associated with Paul, but also we don't know. It's not part of the canon. It's not inspired scripture, but it is fascinating, and it is far from being among the Gnostic pseudepigraphical works. And it's not to be confused with the Gospel of Barnabas, by the way. He talks about in this passage about why Christians worship on Sunday. I thought you guys would find this interesting. Let me check what time we're at. We're at exactly an hour. And there are exactly 3 of you. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. I love our regulars. You guys are saints. And like I said, you guys find this fascinating? Somebody else out there that you haven't met yet? The people that aren't co-conspirators yet are out there waiting for you to share this video and pique their interest. Barnabas. A few years ago, I discovered, thanks to Ken Johnson's YouTube channel, that Barnabas had something very interesting to say about what Christians, why Christians don't observe Sabbath or Saturday, the 7th day, but rather Sunday, the 8th day. This is from Barnabas chapter 15, verse 1. Moreover, concerning the Sabbath, likewise, it is written in the 10 words in which he spake to Moses face to face on Mount Sinai, and ye shall hallow the Sabbath of the Lord with pure hands and with a pure heart. This is obviously the 10 Commandments. Barnabas 15:2. And in another place he saith, if my sons observe the Sabbath, then I will bestow my mercy upon them. Oh, look at that. The ancient pagan god, my. Capitalized. Now it's a proper name, right, Gail? Like the one. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Total nonsense. Anyways. Of the Sabbath day he speaketh in the beginning of the creation, and God made the works of his hands in 6 days, and he ended on the 7th day and rested on it, and he hallowed it. Now this is going to have an interesting tie-in with the Easter egg and that idea of new beginning. And also, Alexander Hislop himself said that the reason why the egg is a symbol for new beginning is because it's a symbol of the ark. You know, the arky, that ark with Noah. And that the ark held the new life inside of it. And when it cracks open, it can go populate the world. That's where the pagans got it from. So not even he is saying that everything goes back to Nimrod. Isn't that interesting? Barnabas 15:4. All right. Give heed, children. Oh, yes. Okay. Give heed, children, what this meaneth. He ended in 6 days. He meaneth this, that in 6,000 years the Lord shall bring all things to an end. Now, this is how Christians interpreted the symbolism of the Old Testament. If you read Barnabas, it is taking a lot of what the scripture says and showing how it is an allegory. In the entire book, he is not denying that these things actually happened, like so many people that want to say that it's super history do today. He's not saying that whatsoever. And as you read the epistle of Barnabas, it becomes all but too clear. The Bible does very similar things in the book of Hebrews, etc., etc. Give heed, children, what this meaneth. We're in verse 4. He added in 6 days, or he ended in 6 days. He meaneth this, that in 6,000 years the Lord shall bring all things to an end. Where are we again? I mean, besides phantom time theory, we're at 6,000 years just about right now. For the day with him signifieth 1,000 years, and this he himself beareth me witness, saying, behold, the day of the Lord shall be as 1,000 years. Therefore, children, in 6 days, that is in 6,000 years, everything shall come to an end. Verse 5, and he rested on the 7th day. This he meaneth, when his son shall come and shall abolish the time of the lawless one. Who is the lawless one? Satan. Okay. Gale wants to pretend that him capitalizing the word Lord, when it refers to Satan as being the Lord of this present evil world, she wants to pretend that that's making Satan Jesus's brother. Well, guess what? He also capitalizes lawless one, making it something that refers to a person, a title, sort of. And guess what? He's identifying Satan as the lawless one and giving him a name without saying his name. It's nothing to do with the goofy, cross-eyed conspiracy theories of a lady that couldn't tell a Greek letter from a Hebrew one when she started this research. She learned a lot along the way, maybe, but when she published New Age Bible versions, she didn't have an iota of a clue of what she was talking about. And he resteth on the seventh day. This he meaneth, when his son shall come, and shall abolish the time of the lawless one, and shall judge the ungodly, and shall change the sun and the moon, and the Jonathan birth go away. And shall judge the ungodly, and shall, I think I'm in a group with him, so that's probably why that came up. And shall judge the ungodly, and shall change the sun and the moon and the stars. Then shall he truly rest on the seventh day. We're almost done. Yea, and furthermore, he saith, thou shalt hallow it with pure hands, and with a pure heart. If therefore a man shall abide now to hallow the day which God hallowed, that though he be pure in heart, we have gone utterly astray. If therefore a man is able now to hallow the day which God hallowed, though he be pure in heart, we have gone utterly astray. I would have to read that 100 times to get exactly what that said. I would highly recommend you guys purchase the Ken Johnson translation. This, I believe, is from, this is the Lightfoot translation. You can see alternative translations at this link. It might be a little easier to understand. But if after all then, and not till then, shall we truly rest and hallow it, when we shall ourselves be able to do so after being justified and receiving the promise, and when iniquity is no more and all things have been made new by the Lord, we shall be able to hallow it then, because we ourselves shall be hallowed first. Finally, he saith to them, your new moons and your Sabbaths I cannot away with. Ye see what is his meaning. It is not your present Sabbaths that are acceptable unto me, but the Sabbath which I have made, in the which when I have set all things at rest, I will make the beginning of the 8th day, which is the beginning of another world. Kind of sounds like Noah. Verse 9, wherefore also we keep the 8th day for rejoicing. I'm talking about Sunday. Wherefore we keep the 8th day for rejoicing, in the which also Jesus rose from the dead, and having been manifested, ascended into the heavens. And that's a little bit of first century detail about why Sunday. The case for the resurrection, doodle-doodle-doo. Some good stuff going on there. The gospel according to vampires. What? So basically the idea of the Bill Schneblin and the cults that teach Christians that Lazarus was the first vampire and all of this stuff. I don't want to hang out on this very long, but we are going to skip over it, briefly hitting the high points like a rock going across the waves. When you are Bill Schneblin and you are taken in by a cult that basically underlies Roman Catholicism, called the cult of the undead or the Nosferatu. which is a secret priesthood, apparently, according to Bill Schneblin, that has ruled Roman Catholicism from the shadows from very early times. Yeah, so there's more details about that here, and I think a couple of links to some things that he talks about. I would also recommend checking out The Gnostic Origins of Roman Catholicism by Ken Johnson. And maybe, and I have not read it yet, The Windswept House by Malachi Martin. I should really look into that myself. After his death, a Gnostic leader penned the Apocryphon of John in the 2nd century AD. Its claims that Christ bestowed John with a secret occult knowledge are strongly opposed by students of John, such as Irenaeus of Lyon. See more of this in Ken Johnson's book, The Demonic Gospels, and our card ministry page, Lost Books. So that's the book if you want to pick it up. You can click right there, and it'll take you to the to Amazon, where you can purchase the audiobook or a printed copy. Lucifer Dethroned is his testimony. There are some drop downs here. See a full list of apostles and their cult streams. So this is basically how it breaks down into what the cults claim the different apostles actually started. Like Peter is supposed to have started the Roman Catholic priesthood. Andrew is supposed to have started the Druidic high priesthood. James is supposed to have started the Eastern Orthodox priesthood. John, the Masonic order. Philip, the Tibetan Bonpa Buddhist priesthood. Bartholomew, the African Ashanti line. Modern Vaudon. All this stuff. Even James is the Native American Cherokee line. So yeah, just a lot of interesting claims that are made by these bizarre cults. Details from the Satanic calendar relating to Easter from Lucifer Dethroned, because do not fool yourselves. They have significance for Easter. And one of the significant things is to apparently sacrifice a Christian. So, be praying against it. And there's some details here about that. You guys can go back through and pause it or what have you, whatever you would like. Vernal equinox. So one thing that I will also say, yeah, we'll probably move on from that too. So yeah, there's Let's Talk, the bottom of the page. So anyways, one thing that I want to highlight too, with that whole idea of Easter's pagan because it falls on a pagan holiday. If you go to the book that Ken Johnson wrote up here, and we'll probably end with this, The Ancient Origins of Modern Holidays. In the back of that book, there is a long and detailed chart showing all of the different pagan holidays that are represented throughout the year. And basically, if you had Christmas be in July and Easter be in October, pick any old random date, like say maybe October 10th. What's the significance behind that, Joseph? Well, it just happens to be Gail Riplinger's birthday. Oh no, wait. It's actually Mark Ward's birthday, too. It's interesting how they share birthdays. They're birthday twins. It's so cute. And I'm sure that they both love that fact. I know Mark does. He gets a real tickle out of it. The Ancient Origins of Modern Holidays gives a chart that gives all of these different dates, and it's hard to even find a calendar date that doesn't have a pagan holiday on it. So if you want to say, oh, Easter was a pagan holiday, and yep, it falls right on the pagan holiday, then goodness, please don't think that you're fooling anybody with that kind of logic. All right, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to remove this, and I'm going to check. All right, there's been a few comments by Brian Ross. Let me check some things real quick, because I think he may be pointing out some typos, which wouldn't be bad. The 1645 annotations reads as follows. at Exodus 23:15, and he said, of unleavened bread, that is the Passover or Easter, in remembrance of the angel pass over the dwellings. Interesting, 1645. And yes, the last word should be dwellings. Well, that's interesting. Thanks for leaving that. And that was around about an hour ago. Yeah, an hour and 4 minutes ago. So yeah, I appreciate that input, Brian. And we appreciate having you as part of our small band of weary travelers here at half an hour till midnight. So I think that's probably good. I don't want to bore you guys with an extremely long stream, but I do want to get to this. It's something that I want to figure out what our vision is at this point. I think it's at this point, I think it's one of the most important things that we need to do as a channel. At one point it was, 500 members in our co-conspirator thing, or $500 worth of members in our co-conspiratorship. And we would start a series evaluating every last little tiny detail in Gail Riplinger's book, New Age Bible Versions. And right now, since I have become delusioned with it since then, or disillusioned with it since then, I was delusioned about it before. Since I've become disillusioned with it since then, I don't know if that's quite the right course of action. I think that maybe our revised mission statement should be something like this. We want to put together a list of 100 pieces of rock-solid evidence that shows there is a conspiracy behind the modern Bible version controversy. So send us your information. We are on a mission. We can't see everything, but there's a lot that needs to be done. You can help us at our Buy Me a Coffee page, buymeacoffee.com/Joseph Armstrong. Or you could send us some information, or you could do both. Any old way you can help will be deeply appreciated. And like I mentioned before, thank you. I'm 100% positive that the three of you that are watching us right now are people that I am indebted to for doing this channel. I know that for a fact. And I appreciate it. And I thank you. You guys have done so much more than I had expected, than I ever asked of you. And I think that's going to be good for tonight. On April 19th, we will be publishing, that's the day after our next live stream next Friday. We'll be publishing our interview with Bryan Ross. I believe it'll be episode 46 if I miss next Friday. And if we actually end up being able to do a live stream next Friday, then it'll be, I believe, number 47. So we're also looking to have a Greek New Testament manuscript expert, a young man with a brilliant mind and an intimate, familiar relationship with Greek New Testament manuscripts. We're also planning to have him on at some point in the future as well. I'm not going to mention his name yet. We still have a lot to put together, but I look forward to having him on the channel at his earliest inconvenience. So it'll be a lot of fun. He's a good guy to talk to. All right, so have a good night, and don't forget to read your King James Bible, or actually, don't forget to read your Bible, because not all Bibles are King James Bibles, turns out. Don't forget to read your Bible like the devil's after it, because there truly is a Bible version conspiracy. God bless, and happy Easter.